Okay, Trevor, I put you up next to Gary Sanchez to try to illustrate a point here. First thing is you can see as you hit, see how much weight's already come forward? You can't draw with it. It's got two guys on. See how our weight's committed? See how hard we are and how much our weight's committed? Now look at Sanchez. Nothing. So again, you watch how you're coming down hard. You can see we've already started to open up a little bit. How soft he is getting down. Now, as your foot's hitting, see how they're both coming together? Foot's down. They're both coming together a little bit. I also think that and I know Mookie Betts hits this way and other guys hit this way, but I think if you got your top hand a little bit closer to your back shoulder, it'd be a lot easier for you to go straight to the ball. Okay, you can see that you've really got your hands away. Your top hand's not a fist away from your back shoulder as your stride foot hits, and you can do that. It just makes it really hard to hit when your hand's that far away from your top hand's that far away from your back shoulder. Sanchez hits you, and you can see top hand's a fist away from his back shoulder. Look at the stretch. So as he comes down, see how his lower half goes. We'll see how the back elbow works independent of the hands. And as you hit, see how they're both coming together? They're both coming together. They're both coming together. Now as Sanchez gets this stretch, again, the stretch is from here to there. Now see how he pulls his hands in straight through? As you hit hard and come hips and hands together, see how much space you've created? Versus as Sanchez is so tight. Now look how he's able to go short to the ball and long through, and we are out in front and around. Hit heavy. Both coming together, and see how much we go around and out in front. Right? And this is why I think you have trouble on the machine that's fast, because we're getting heavy here, and as they both come together, see all that gap, 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 and we're set to be around, gap, heavy, together, and some gap, whereas we see turn, elbow drop without moving the hands, pull our hands right through. Okay, Trevor, here's your second at bat off of Coach Whitty, and I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did on the one with you next to Sanchez, but you can see how heavy we are on our stride right there, right? We've started to get our weight there, and we've started to open up. So again, you can see how heavy we are on our stride. The other thing is, as your foot hits, once again, you can see the huge space that's in there. It's possible to hit that way, and we've showed major leaguers that have hit that way, but what ends up happening with your top hand not being a fist away from your back shoulder, we can see how we've got a bunch of space in there, and our direction ends up being around, really around there. And I think if we combine two things, if we got rid of being heavy on our stride right there, I think if we got our hands, if we got our hands, well, here, I'll zoom in so you can see it better, but you can see the space that's created. You can see the weight shift there on our stride, and we can see we're not really getting a stretch. And remember, like the example where I showed the Sanchez, how he pulled in, we can see our hands don't really get pulled in, and we can tell from right there that our direction is going to be around. It's not off by a lot, bud. It really isn't. But I want you to see how we get heavy there, and we're starting to get our arms first. And this is what makes it tough when the machine was throwing hard to be able to get to it, because we've committed there. Once we get there, it's going to be really tough to get on that machine that's coming hard. I'll zoom back out for better quality. And we get our hips and hands. This one's better. We can see how that elbow does ride down a lot better there. But if we could get there without getting our hands to move at all, and our top hand was a little bit closer to our back shoulder, I think we'd be able to work more efficiently away from our body instead of getting that around action there. Okay, Trevor, this is your last at bat in or your first at bat in the last game where we had the machine up close. And so what we're working on is getting direction, because you can see how we're around the ball, but extension being a byproduct of everything else that we do. Just wanted to show again as we watch our front side. See, as soon as we get there, see our direction's going to be around. Boom, we're already set to be around, 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 around right there. The other thing is, as you watch, as this is coming down and we see us start to open up here, again, we want to keep working on getting that stretch. See how it's together a little bit? See how it's together a little bit? Now see how you have to pull back in so that your top hand's a fist away from our back shoulder, okay? And I mean, we're doing a lot of good things as far as, I can see why you hit the ball hard, like you release your backside, like that's really good, right? Head stays back, we're real good there. But we want to get our direction cleaned up, which means we don't want to come down opened up like that. You can just see how that's all set to be opened up, and how our hands are starting to move forward as our stride foot hits. And the gap that we have between our top hand and our back shoulder, I think that's too much space in there. I think we should start getting in closer, because as we start away, now all of a sudden we have to try to pull back in, and we can see from right there that we're going to be around the ball, right? So instead of having, So instead of having the bat back up there somewhere, you can see how we're just starting to come around is our action. And it's because we get a breakdown with our lower half there, and you can see the movement as our foot's landing. We look at our hands, they're just starting to come forward, right? So I think if we worked on getting loaded with our top hand closer, a fist away from our back shoulder, and we got rid of that action right there, right? And we tried to get, I would love it to see if we were there without really having our hands starting to move forward. But our hands have started to move forward, and we're just getting around a little bit. Okay, Trevor, this is your last at bat in the last game. Sorry, it's a little crooked there. When we had the machine slow and close, and that's the motion we just want to keep working on, right? We can see from right there, we're going to be a little bit around as we can see our weights start to open up and our hands start to come forward on our stride. And so as we look, we pull back in, right? We release our backside real well, but we can still see that our direction is around, and we just want to keep working on to right there, right? Let's remember, we want to stride to load, right? We just want to get a little bit more loaded on our stride, not have ourselves start opening up and not start having our hands come forward, because then you can see we try to pull back in tight, we release our backside, right? We see our backside release real good, but our direction is just a little bit around. And while that's a fairly efficient movement in there, we lose it right there. And that's the part that we want to try to clean up over the wintertime.